Alright boys, so this video is for all my loop maker guys out there. Today I'm going to be breaking down how exactly to send starters, and honestly in my opinion, sending starters is a cheat code to getting placements in 2024. Today we're going to be breaking this video down into 3 separate sections for you boys. The first section is going to be why you should send starters, like what even is the point, what are starters, and what are the best methods of sending them out. The second section of the video is going to be a deep dive into how to actually send starters, what platforms to send them through, who you're sending them to, and honestly this is the main bit that I see producers getting wrong and why producers don't get their starters used. So definitely stick around for that, super important stuff in there. And finally, it's all well and good if you know you should send starters, you know how to send them properly, but if your starters are shit, realistically no one's going to use them. So the third part of the video is how to make starters, the easiest method and then the best method to get the best starters, and just a couple different ways that myself and other top loop makers make starters and send them out so they get used. So jumping straight into it with some reasons that you should be sending out starters. Now these are some no-brainers, but it's worth going over them super quickly. If you've clicked on this video, chances are you're already making loops. Now a great way of sending out starters is to simply take your existing loop, mute a few of the unnecessary sections and just capture the main idea and maybe one other element, export that out, and bang, you've got a starter. Simple as. I'll be going more in depth on this at the end of the video, talking about how to make starters, but they're super easy to make for a lot of people, so there's no reason why you shouldn't. But if that isn't enough to convince you that you should be making starters, here's another reason why you should be making starters, and that is 2 brains are better than 1. You could make an idea and think it's average, think it's good, and you could end up with a decent loop. But if you make an average idea in your eyes, you could send it to someone else and they get crazy inspired and go crazy on the loop, and then you've got a 10 times better loop as you've just combined both of your brain and musical powers. This second loop maker often comes into the original starter with a fresh head, fresh ears, and fresh ideas to go crazy and make something that neither of you would have been able to make by yourselves. Finally, and probably the biggest reason that a lot of people, including myself, send out starters is if there's 2 people on a loop who both send to all their drum maker connects, each producer is basically doubling their chances as they're both sending it out to their own connects. You double your chance of getting a placement, and it's just mutually beneficial. So if you're not making starters, get to it, bro. Make some flipping starters, man. So without further ado, here is jumping into the second part of the video, how to send out starters properly so that they get used. Now this section is the main reason why I wanted to make this video, as earlier in the video I mentioned I see a lot of producers doing this wrong. Now the main thing I see producers doing wrong is sending out starters to their loop mail list. I don't see why people do this. It makes 0 sense, as on a lot of people's loop mail list is mainly drum makers. Why would you send drum makers your starters? They're drum makers, bro. They're not going to finish it and make a loop 90% of the time. I've seen many people with the mentality that if they can get their ideas on as many laptops and to as many producers as possible, they have more chances of getting a placement. Now this might be true, but I feel like times are changing, and in 2024 it's almost better to have quality connections and send to producers and loop makers that really genuinely like your stuff and are defo going to use it, than to just send to anyone. And chances are, if you're sending to anyone and you're sending random loops, random genres that the drum makers or loop makers don't even make, you're probably going to get blocked. So for me, my method of sending out starters, and in my opinion the most effective way of sending out starters, is to actually network and build a connection with 15 to 25 producers who will use your stuff consistently, and you can actually share ideas around, communicate properly, and elevate both of your production and go crazy and send out to all your connects, get way more placements. If you want to figure out how to network and actually make 15 to 25 loop maker friends or drum maker friends to work closely with, click on the little eye. I've got a full networking video of how I network, and is in my opinion secret sauce no one actually talks about. People gatekeep this stuff, so definitely go check that one out. But yeah boys, essentially make sure you're careful who you're sending out to, because the business could be iffy as well if you're sending to randoms. There's so many reasons to keep your starter list a lot more exclusive than your loop list. So yeah, in short, get 15 to 25 producers you send starters to and work closely with. Finally, how to flip DMate starters. The easiest way to do this is to take your existing loops and just water them down. So say you had a loop with some vocals, a pad, some accents, some ambient textures, and a couple other elements which were necessary but weren't the main idea. Say you have the main idea, which is a simple top line piano melody and some chords. you can then mute everything else and just send that as a starter for someone else to put their own vocals and their own ambience and their own stuff to support the main idea. Or what I see some people do is to mute the chords and mute the main melodic top line and just send out ambient sort of atmospheric starters. There's kind of two ways you can do it, but the easiest way is to just take parts of your own loops, which are fire, mute the other parts and send them out as starters. Another thing I want to add in here is to make sure your starters are something that the other loop maker couldn't make themselves. Whether you've done some crazy processing on it, or you've played an instrument not everyone can play, or you've come up with some chords that not everyone would think of, try and make it so that the starter isn't something anyone can do, because if anyone could do it, they'll just do it themselves. There's no reason to use the starter. I do see some people going into FL Studio with the intention to make starters and trying to make something crazy and wacky to send out. You can do that as well, but in my opinion, if you're a loop maker, you've already got, say, 20 loops there that you haven't exported as starters. Take the best elements from each of those and send them out to people. Now you might be saying, won't I just get similar sounding loops all the time? No. If you're sending out simple elements, people could just even turn that right down and have their own crazy ideas on top of it. Trust me, I've had people use my starters and I have not got a clue which starter they used because they flipped it so crazy. I've rushed through all of the points in this video because I want to pack as much value into a short amount of time as possible, because I know 2024, everyone's attention spans are fried. Hopefully you boys got some value from this video. I'm gonna edit it down even further. It should be about 5-6 minutes. So if you stayed this long, I appreciate you. Go follow my Instagram. I do daily reels and drop loads of tips on my Instagram. Gonna be starting a broadcast channel soon, and make sure you definitely go down, leave a comment, tell me what you thought of the video, and subscribe. Thank you boys for tapping in. My name is Max, or Maxter, and I'll see you boys in the next one. Peace.